you think of it?
I knew what Dale Hansen is. Unfortunately, right? Unfortunately.
I remember Dale Hansen countdown when I first came to the league.
So Jerry Jones and I and a couple other guys.
This has been a great year, Ted. Dale.
We love Dale. We love Dale.
Dale. He keeps you in touch with sports.
If you're ready, jump right in. Dallas Dialogue with Dale.
Hola, shalom, and hey there, neighbor. Welcome to the latest episode of Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen. I'm your host, Mark Villasana, and joining me as always is my BFF, marketing manager for Northwest Insurance, Miss Lila Levy. Hey, Lila, how are you doing?
Mark, hola.
Hola to you, my friend. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Also joining me is WFAA TV legend, podcast extraordinaire, and the man we call the truth around here, Mr. Dale Hansen. Hello, Dale. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's been kind of a crazy month, though, hasn't it?
It has been. Now, it has been a month since last we spoke. Tell me, has anything grabbed your fancy? Anything in the news you must feel you need to talk about?
We'll get into this down the road a little bit. But
Okay.
the NFL needs to get rid of that rule they have about ties.
I would say so.
I like the overtime process that they have, but if you put 3.5+ hours into a game and it ends in a tie like the Cowboys and Packers did, that's just not right. I want the NFL to finish the game somehow, some way. I don't care.
Right.
But I want a winner and a loser at the end of the day.
I tend
For
to
sure.
agree with you. I think he's referring, Lila, to the recent Dallas Packers game where it ended in a 40-40 tie. Can you believe that?
Kissing your sister.
Yeah, it was
That's
great.
what it is.
Yeah, it
It's
was.
kissing your
Yeah,
sister.
agreed.
When I was like 11 years old, I was babysitting, and I was babysitting for my neighbors who were big Texas X's. And they went to the Texas OU game, and I was babysitting all day. And they came home, and I was like, what did it end up at? And they said, oh, it was a tie. And I said, oh, well, at least Texas didn't lose. And the mom, Marilyn said to me, no, Lila, that's like kissing your sister. Ever since I was 11, I've remembered that.
Well, yeah. Well, so to your point, Dale, 3.5 hours, and then no one comes out a winner.
Nobody comes that way.
But players, I mean,
That's got to stop.
Yeah.
But again, Lila and I have talked about doing something about the Cowboys and the NFL, and
Yeah.
I think we're going to wait till like January and when the Cowboys are out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
As if they ever get in. But before I get up on my soapbox here a little bit, though, Mark, as I always like to do, I saw your boy in the commercial in last month's episode talking about your what do you call this? All service or all
independent agency.
independent. How do you decide when somebody comes to you when you've got all these different companies to choose from?
Right.
How do you decide which company you're going to choose for that particular person?
Well, that's a great question. I appreciate that. First of all, shout out to my son, Seth, who's in our commercial with me. We are an independent agency. Basically, what that means is we represent not one company. We represent a whole bunch of different markets. So each company has their niche where they're looking, believe it or not, for that particular driver. So I do have a company, Lila, that's looking for someone who's 70 plus, who drives a black SUV. That's their niche market. So I'm able to place that particular client with that particular company. And I think that's the advantage I hold over someone who's what we call a captive agent who just represents one company.
Where you go to typically you go to an agency and they go, well, this is what our product is and that's it. You think it's better when you got options, right?
I do think it's better options. Now, the thing I will say about me is you're going to be placed with companies maybe you haven't heard of. They're not quite as the name's not quite as known, but reputable companies, great companies will pay out the same thing as any of the big companies that might have state or farm in their names. So, I appreciate
Not
that
to
question.
mention any of them.
But, I don't want to name any names. So, but tell me, my friend, what do you got for us today?
Well, this has been a hard one for me, and it's kind of strange that it has been because, as I mentioned to Lila the other day, I've had to redo this commentary 3 times. In fact, I even found some mistakes in it this very morning, so I had to basically redo it a 4th time because when you start talking about shootings in America, it changes almost on a daily basis. But I did write this a couple of days ago, and it is one of my unfortunately most important topics in America, and I've talked about it before, but it's going to go something like this. The recent shootings in Utah and Minnesota have me thinking again because our government leaders won't and apparently can't. Their constant refrain of thoughts and prayers proves the old adage to be true. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And what we're doing in America is indeed insane. The gun problem in America is only an American problem. There is no civilized country that can match us when it comes to killing our children, and I do blame a misunderstanding of the Second Amendment for that. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Everybody remembers that last part. Very few remember the first. That Second Amendment begins, a well-regulated militia. But the Supreme Court has said that part doesn't matter anymore. Just another reason why the Supreme Court is well on its way to becoming an institution that doesn't matter anymore either. We needed a citizen militia to protect us in the 17 and 1800s, but we don't need one now. We have the National Guard for that, and they eliminate crime everywhere they go. I've been told that by people who should know, so it must be true. I know this argument is like spitting into the wind because it will only blow back on me. But why won't we make it stop? Other countries have, we could too, but we choose not to. It is harder and takes longer to buy a house in America than it does to buy a gun. Everyone who buys a used car can easily find the name of every single person who ever owned it. Tracing the ownership of a gun, not nearly as easy to do. The last year we have an official number of the gun deaths in America is 2023 because apparently it's too hard to keep count. But in that single year, 46,728 people died from a gun. Suicide, accidents, and murders. 46,728 all dead because of a gun. And too many of them, the little kids our political leaders are supposed to protect but don't because they are more concerned about protecting your right to have a gun. And yet even a leader like Charlie Kirk says there's really nothing we can do. We have to accept some people being killed, despite what other countries have done. Apparently only Americans have mental health problems. Only Americans are influenced to kill by movies and music, and only Americans are moved to violence by a social media post that might not even be true. On 9/11, 19 hijackers killed 2,976 people. 2,900 killed on 9/11, and we went to war. Invaded 2 countries and spent trillions of dollars, passed a Patriot Act taking away the freedoms and privacy we used to have, and decided that torture was really nothing more than just enhanced interrogation. All to avenge the death of 2,900. 46,000 almost every year. Thoughts and prayers. I have said this before, but it's worth saying again. If you have a gun, we don't want it. If you like to hunt, we don't want you to stop. We just want to stop a nut with a gun, and we could if our elected officials cared as much about doing what's right as they do about your right to own a gun. I don't find the comfort so many of you do when I'm told our babies are in heaven now. I prefer to sleep at home than sleep with angels. But I find a great deal of comfort in this. Bobby Kennedy, in a speech described as one of his very best, speaking after the assassination of Martin Luther King, said, "We can do well in this country. We will have difficult times. We had difficult times in the past, and we will have difficult times in the future. But let's dedicate ourselves to what the Greeks wrote so many years ago, to tame the savageness of man and make gentle the life of this world." Bobby Kennedy's gentle life was ended just 2 months later by a man with a gun.
Well, Dale, strong words, and as an avid watcher and listener over the years, unfortunately, you've had to give a variation of this over and over again, and I don't understand it. I have some points I'd like to make. Usually, my role here is to kind of push back, but on this one, I can't push back.
It is the thing you just said, though, that disgusts me and frustrates me the most. I think I have probably written in my days at WFAA, sometimes they wanted me to, sometimes I just did, writing about the gun violence in America probably 4 to 5 times, and probably as long as 20 to 25 years ago. And nothing really changes. And I just don't understand it, because when you look at so many other issues in America, and we have a lot of them, but as I think I made a pretty good argument, The terrorists on 9/11 killed 2,900 people, and look at the response a unified country made. Wars, trillions of dollars spent, people rallying around this cause because we're going to put a stop to this. And if we have to give up some of our freedoms, which we have, and we have to give up some of our privacy, which we have, in order to keep us safe, we as a nation will do that. And luckily, there has not been another massive attack like 9/11 since, because the effort we made and the steps we took stopped it. 46,000 die every single year. And even a man who was murdered, like Charlie Kirk, by a gun, has said repeatedly, not really anything we can do about this. Here's our thoughts and prayers.
Well, I think there's no question that if we wanted to, we could make some changes. So, in my opinion, it's definitely a choice. I'd like to get a quick take from Lila and see what she has to say about this before we take a break.
You don't blink an eye anymore. We're all desensitized to hearing about these shootings. My first recollection of a shooting of large magnitude was either in 1991 or 1992 when a person walked into a Luby's in Waco, Texas. Do y'all remember that?
Yes.
And he shot up the place.
Yeah.
And I remember I worked at a commercial real estate firm at that time, and I remember hearing about it, a couple hours after it happened, and everyone was stunned and numb and sad and just beyond people. We were walking around, we were like, oh my God, what is happening? And now something like that doesn't even warrant a blink, doesn't even warrant sitting down and being numbed or upset by it. And that's what's really upsetting. That's what upsets me, is that we're so desensitized to any of this, even if it's one person that got shot.
I totally agree with you. And to that point, well, I've got a list here of the last 5 big issues involving guns here in the United States, and I will go over each one before we go to a break. But this is such a big issue, right? We can break this down into so many parts. Let's take a quick break, and when we do, we'll take one point and we'll just riff on that and let Dale hear what he has to say on it. But I do want to mention, as I said, one of the latest gun violent issues here in the United States happened on September 29th in Grand Blanc, Michigan. 4 were killed, several injured. A gunman rammed his vehicle into the church entrance during Sunday service and opened fire. So that just happened just the other day.
Yeah, I mentioned writing this, and as you well know, because I always like to send you a copy of what I'm going to do in my commentary for you to review it and have your arguments ready. This one I had to write 3 different times. And I finally just gave up on it. And you mentioned the shooting, and then they burned the church down in Michigan, the shooting in Dallas at the ICE agency. And I thought, when is October going to roll around so we can do this commentary?
Right.
Because I could have rewritten it a dozen times.
Right.
Because I actually wrote it shortly after the murder of Charlie Kirk.
Right.
And I thought, well, okay, I'll be good for a while. And just what you said, Lila, it just kind of went by me. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting at my computer one day, and I look up, I go, there's been about 3 or 4 major shootings that I should mention in the commentary. The Dallas shooting, the Michigan shooting. And by the time this airs, we'll have 2 more. Yeah. We'll probably have 2 more.
Isn't that sad?
I just decided that, the commentary itself, I'm going to just leave it as is. We'll talk about it after the commercial break, but it just happens day after day after day. We get all excited. We get all up in arms. We make all these grand pronouncements. And then 2 days later, we move on.
Yeah.
We absolutely move on. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting.
Very disgusting. I think since we all agree, let's take this apart one by one and see what we can do and maybe change some people's minds. You've been listening to Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hanson, and we'll be right back.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. But I have a question for you. What's going to happen if an accident happens at your home? Maybe a fire or a flood or even a burglary. Well, with Northwest Insurance Agency, all of those thoughts can just stay thoughts. Because when you're covered under the sombrero, you're covered for any accident imaginable. So give us a call today or visit us at nwagencies.com and let us give you the peace of mind you deserve.
Northwest Insurance.
Okay, we are back on Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen. Guys, when we left, we were just getting started and about this gun control argument. I think we're all in agreement that it's awful. Something needs to be done. I do want to read one more incident that happened on August 27th, just so people can realize this is happening every day and how desensitized we are to it. In Minneapolis, Minnesota, August 27, 2025, two children were killed and multiple injured. The shooter, a former student of the parish school, opened fire during mass. And that's where I want to get started, guys. Where is the line? We don't even blink when children are killed during mass. Let me repeat that. Children were killed during mass, and we woke up the next day like nothing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the worst of the worst, that you are sending your child to pray, to do, and they are in harm's way. It's the worst of the worst. And as you said, I mean, again, we're going to use the word desensitized throughout this hour.
Yeah.
And that's what we are.
There was a great episode on the Daily Show with Jon Stewart the other night. And this is where we've kind of, in my opinion, regressed into this argument, is that it used to be about the horrific nature of the shooting. Now most of the conversation centers around, well, what was the shooter's politics? Was he a liberal? Was he a conservative? Was he a MAGA supporter? Was he a liberal supporter or a socialist supporter? Was he anti-religion? Was he a religious nut? Jon Stewart said it best, in my opinion, is I don't care why they open fire. I care about how we stop them from doing it again. Right. And yet we're obsessed in this country now of, we're not going to be that upset if it was one of ours.
Yeah.
If it was one of ours, it was probably almost a righteous shoot. And you do hear that on, again, I hate this term, but on both sides.
You do.
And you hear people on the liberal side, like with the what was the guy's name again? Luigi something? The guy shot in the church.
Luigi.
There are people out there almost justifying it because they're so absolutely angry about the insurance industry in America. And the fact that he's hot and he's a great looking guy, so a lot of women are like going bonkers. Yeah. But they almost try to justify it because he killed somebody that we really don't like. And I'm watching the country try to catch up with what we were talking about last month on this podcast. Look what social media has done. Not only do I think they incite a lot of the shootings, but then people are losing their jobs. People are losing their livelihoods because they feel compelled. Oh, I've got to make a comment about the death of Charlie Kirk. Oh, good. You're now unemployed.
Right.
I have to make a comment about the shooting of the insurance agent in New York City. Great. Now you're unemployed.
Right.
How this country survives, as I said, I think repeatedly last month, did I not, Lila? How this country survives the abuses that we see on a regular basis on social media, I do not know. I absolutely do not know.
I do want to be clear. That was an insurance executive that got killed in New York City, not an insurance agent, Dale. I want to give anybody ideas out there, okay? But we talk about, again, desensitized, and every month, no matter what our topic is, we always bring it back to the media.
Yes.
The media drives the narrative. And just like you mentioned, Dale, it has not become any more about the tragedy in itself. It's about what side was that guy. And that
what
is
side was he? Yeah.
It is awful. It is ridiculous.
Is he trans?
And it takes away the humanity out of the actual people who passed away.
Yeah.
And the damage that was done to those families. Those people, not only because there are survivors, and there are families of the survivors. Everybody is going to be impacted. And I don't think people realize that anymore because, again, we talked about desensitization, if even that's a word.
They had, and again, another part of this Jon Stewart episode was just that we get bogged down, whereas the media used to be, well, we're not going to give the name of the shooter. We're not going to give him any more glory. And I say him because it's about 99.9% white males. We're not going to give them any more publicity, any more glory than what they were striving to get. But we've gone from that to now we just start throwing their name out there right off the bat and then make the next jump. I think he was a liberal. I think he was a liberal.
Right.
Without any evidence. Oh, no, this was a MAGA guy. This was a right-wing nut. This was a Christian nut. This was an anti-Christian nut. And the media has, I think, played an unfortunate role in all this. You do have to do the news. I really wasn't a big fan of although I'm starting to rethink it a little bit. Do people really open fire on a church because we glorified somebody who did it before? I mean, is that what drives them to do it? I think it's a bigger issue than that, isn't it? But, I thought it was kind of silly that the media tried to play that role.
Yeah, they're just trying to categorize it as something because I think it makes the sell easier, you know? I will say that we could go on and on the reasoning, but there's definitely been a shift somewhere in society where guns are the first option. You know, it goes from zero to let's go kill somebody.
That's a good point.
I would just want to read a real stat.
Yeah,
you guys
go ahead.
can riff on it. The U.S. has 5% of the world's population, but we account for over 31% of all the mass shootings globally. So, I mean, that has to tell you that, you know, it's something within our society. Now, my question to you guys is, any ideas what that could be? When did the shift happen, and what is the shift all about?
I'm still going to go to, and I don't know if this is really answering your question, but just desensitization, being desensitized.
Is that a
Just-
Hollywood thing, though? Is that a game? Is that a game thing?
don't
I mean,
know.
well, where does that come from?
It just seems like it. You know, when you like when you put a lobster in hot water and you slowly turn it up, and before you know it, the lobster is no longer living, and it is cooked, right?
Now he's delicious.
Right. But it just seems like, my analogy with that is, it just seems like the temperature has just gone up a little bit at a time. You would have thought that Columbine, we were talking about this during break, when it happened. Columbine happened April of 1999. I remember I had just started a new job. I'd been at the job a week, and I remember it happening on a weekday, like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And all those kids were killed at their high school. And you would have thought that would have been a major turning point. And you would have also thought, I believe it was in 2012 when Sandy Hook happened.
Right.
And you would have thought that would have been a turning point. And it just it's just the temperature just keeps going up, and I don't see it. How is it going to go down?
Go ahead, Dale, please.
I've had this argument with friends of mine and gun-owning friends of mine many times, and I'm going to throw it out there again because you sent me a graph of the countries that have had these mass shootings. Almost all of them have incredibly strict gun control laws. Australia was having a problem with mass shootings into the early 90s, and then their politicians stepped up and basically made it really hard to own a gun. You can still own a gun. You can still hunt in Australia, but they made it really hard just to own a gun. Now, all those politicians were eliminated. They were voted out of office. All those politicians who did the right thing gave up their careers. For the next 20 years, they had no mass shootings. They finally just had one, as I looked up, 15 years ago.
Okay.
But in like 30 plus years, after having several mass shootings, they had one. And I just think there's an absolutely direct correlation between the availability of guns and the killing by guns. I was just a couple of weeks ago in Waxahachie. I was in a little cigar bar, and a guy said to me, "Well, I could kill you with a knife. I mean, you're saying it's about the guns. I could kill you with a knife." I said, "Great. I have no doubt you could probably kill me with a ballpoint pen. But how about this? You go across the room, you take out the biggest knife you have, and I'm going to sit over here with my AR-15.
Right.
You might still get me, but give it your best shot. You think Charlie Kirk would have been killed by a knife? No. The guy was able to sit up on a roof with basically a weapon of war. Do you really want to go out and shoot deer with an AK-47? We have 310, I think it is, 310 million population in America. We have 365 million guns. We have more guns in America than we have people. And this is the biggest point that when people hear this, because I've already said it once before on WFAA, and I got slammed for it, and I stand by it. Their arguments about the availability of guns falls apart, and it fell apart for me several years ago when Donald Trump was speaking at the NRA convention in Dallas. Because what do they always say? The only thing that protects us from a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Guns don't kill, people do. Guns, not an issue. Guns are not the problem. Donald Trump comes to Dallas to speak to the National Rifle Association convention. They banned all guns from the convention center. I laughed so hard I almost cracked a rib. Donald Trump is speaking at the National Rifle Association, an organization that says guns don't kill, people do.
Right.
That guns are the only way we can protect ourselves from a bad guy with a gun. No guns allowed in the Dallas Convention Center. And I actually had people, I said it. I said it on WFAA, and I mean, the response was staggering. And the constant response is, well, you know, that's the rule. I mean, you know, we have to protect the president. I say, hey, I'm all for that. How are you going to do it when you take all the guns away?
Yeah.
Because you need guns.
Yeah.
You need your guns. And I'm sitting going, those kind of arguments. I get it that you can kill me with a knife. You could kill me with a rolled up paper if you know what you're doing.
Right.
I get it.
Right.
But I like my chances with a Glock.
Yeah.
And you've got a ballpoint pen or a knife. Now again, you if you're Jason Statham, I'm still probably going to die, and I'll probably panic and miss.
Might get a couple hits in, yeah.
Yeah, but I like my chances.
Yeah.
And when you look at the most recent one of Charlie Kirk's death, he's dead because a guy with some serious mental health issues decided to get on a rooftop hundreds of yards away with basically a weapon of war and was able to shoot him in the neck from hundreds of yards away because he had access to a gun that would have taken him longer if he tried to buy a house, because they would have checked, they would have rechecked, and then they check again. You buy a gun, you put your money down, and if you don't fail a really quick check about your past and your history, here's your gun.
Right.
I mean, within a matter of hours in most places. A matter of hours. Worst case scenario, it might take you 3 days.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's take a quick break there. You mentioned Charlie Kirk. You mentioned how this one individual was kind of trying to defend the guns against knives. And I'm curious, let's talk about rhetoric, because Charlie Kirk had a lot of rhetoric concerning guns. The president, you mentioned the president, he has a lot of rhetoric about violence and guns. Is that maybe part of the reason things are happening the way they are? Let's get into all that when we come back. You've been listening to Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen, and we'll be right back.
Whether you're racing to work or just enjoying a cruise on a Sunday afternoon, we can do that. It does not matter if it's a beat-up clunker of a daily driver or a supercar that you love with all your heart, we cover it. Perhaps you need business insurance to get on a job site, or just want that safety net for your employees. We have that also. Don't forget about your most important asset of them all, your home. What I'm trying to say is that at Northwest Insurance Agency, we do it all.
Northwest Insurance. Get covered under this umbrella.
Northwest Insurance.
Okay, we are back on Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen. Guys, I'm going to give another instance of gun violence and throw another fact out, and then we'll get into this whole media thing. On September 21st in Phoenix, Arizona, 6 people were killed and 11 were injured when a dispute escalated into gunfire inside a packed nightclub. I'm just another instance of all this crap that's happening. Okay, we were talking about the media, and Lila, you had a story about how sometimes the media is out of whack on what they perceive as important, what's not important. Tell us a little bit about that.
Are we talking about the story about Bad Bunny?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell me about that one.
Okay, so today it's the beginning of October, and just earlier this week, well, on Sunday is when a madman drove his truck into a church in Michigan and opened fire, killing 4 people, injuring others. There were lots of children in the church, and set the church on fire. And that was on Sunday. Right. And it definitely got coverage on the news and in print. And I mean, it was all over my phone.
We listed it here today.
Yeah. But then on Monday, the NFL announced that Bad Bunny, who is a Latin Grammy-winning artist, just a very, very successful Latin Grammy-winning artist. He is going to headline and perform at the 2026 halftime show at the Super Bowl. And people lost their minds. They lost their mind. They didn't
That's
lose
some
their
scandalous
minds
stuff.
over a madman driving his truck into a church,
Yeah.
a place of worship, and killing people and putting children in harm's way and lighting the church on fire. But they lost their mind that a Latin Grammy-winning artist was going to headline the NFL halftime show or the Super Bowl.
Dale mentioned Charlie Kirk earlier, and we talked about the president, and we're talking about rhetoric, and that's why people are so desensitized to all this. Dale, how much is the rhetoric coming from the top? How much has that affected what's going on right now?
Well,
How
again,
much
I
blame-
think it's a major problem. I mean, obviously, I think it's a major problem, but this is part of the problem. The bigger problem is, I don't know that that's the answer. I mean, without question, just for a lot of common decency reasons, the rhetoric needs to be cleaned up and stopped and just, put it away. But I still think it goes back in some fashion to two parts. The mental health issue, I think, is huge. I mean, don't you have to be mentally ill to kill people randomly? I do. And then I do think the access, without question, the access to a gun, because every mentally ill person that decides to kill yes, they can drive into the church, they can set the church on fire, and they could probably kill some people with a knife. Give it your best shot. If you're going to do it, please come at me with a knife. As compared to a Glock or a AK-47 or AR, whatever these things are. And again, I look at all these other countries. As I said in the commentary, we're the only country that has mental health issues. We're the only country that has political leaders that say things that are not kosher. A term I have no idea what it means, but I'm assuming you could tell me later.
That's to you, for you, Lila.
There are radical, crazy leaders in France and Germany and Turkey and Hungary and all these other countries, but they don't shoot up the schoolroom. They don't shoot up the places of worship. I think it somehow, some way has to start with an identity of the mentally ill in this country. And then I still keep harping back on the fact that we just got to take these guns and control the disbursement of them.
Definitely.
And because it works in other countries.
Right.
I gave you the Australia reference.
Right.
Used to be, although I think this has changed to some extent, but the first time I went to England, I'm walking around the streets of London, the cops don't have guns. The cops didn't have guns.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Now you get off the plane in London and they're standing there with
machine guns. Yeah.
machine guns.
Yeah.
But for somebody to go in, even if they go into their dad's closet and take out this gun, which I think happens a lot, and has been proven to happen a lot, there just has to be better control.
Well, there is. Yeah.
Because guns kill.
To your point,
I've wondered that too.
Well,
But I've wondered that too for years. Why can Australia or Ireland or the host of countries, why can they do it and we can't do it?
Here's a little fact: 22% of gun owners here in the United States acquired their firearm without a background check. So that means they're getting them off the street.
Sure.
They're getting them at these gun shows. I think that's
a high number.
To Dale's point, accessibility is an issue. I mean, they're everywhere.
Well, the National Rifle Association has always made the argument, well, we have laws. We don't need laws. I said, well, then why do we have laws about seat belts? Why do we have laws about speed limits? Because they work. Do they stop everybody from speeding? No. Do they force everybody to wear a seatbelt? No. But we have laws that protect lives. You set the standard of a speed limit. You set the standard of no smoking in a bar. Why can't I smoke in a bar? Oh, that's right. We have a law against that because people die as a result of other people smoking in a bar. So we pass a law. Do some people still smoke in a bar? I promise you they do. So when people make this argument that, well, if we do get more restrictive, what was the line that the NRA uses? Only if we outlaw guns, only the outlaws will have guns, or something like that.
Something to that effect.
Yes, some outlaws will still manage to find guns. Not if we quit making machine guns available to the general public. Right. And I say the same thing in response to that. Well, then in that case, you're in favor of no speed limits on the highways. Are you? I mean, some people, I guarantee you are.
Right.
You're in favor of you can smoke anywhere you want. Anywhere you want, you can smoke. You don't have to wear a seatbelt. We'll just accept the consequences of seatbelts save lives, and I'm absolute living proof of that because, the first time I ever wore a seatbelt, I had a crash that very night, which, as the police officer said, saved my life. We have these laws that protect people in our society for the general good of our society. Does everybody follow them? Of course not. But the general public benefits from these kind of laws. And then we get to guns, and the NRA leads the argument, and too many of our political leaders, there's nothing we can do there. There's no laws we can pass there. And yet Australia did it, France did it, England did it, Ireland did it, Germany did it. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. It's obscene. It's obscene.
It is. And we talked about accessibility. We talked about mental health. But, why has the United States been able to make any changes? And I think fundamentally we know the politicians, the money being poured into it.
No, of course.
Why don't we take a quick break so we can do a longer segment next time and talk? Let's get into that about why is our government refusing to protect us, basically in a nutshell. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and you'll be listening to Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen. We'll be right back. If you're a Texas contractor and your insurance guy doesn't speak your language, fire him. We specialize in Spanish-speaking tradesmen. Call today, and we'll review your current policy for free. No pressure, just straight answers. You've seen the guy that's your bro. That's us. And just like I protected my grandfather from the sun, we protect you from life's challenges. I'm Mark Villasana, owner and agency principal with Northwest Insurance.
I actually heard about NW agencies through a friend of mine who's been using them for years. Honestly, I've been really impressed. They made the whole process so much simpler than I expected. I was always used to dealing with a lot of back and forth, but with NW it was straightforward, and I always felt like they had my best interests at heart.
We're a full-service independent agency. That means we don't work for a single carrier, we work for you. We've got access to over 100 carriers, so whether you're insuring your home, your truck, or your electrical business, we'll find the coverage that fits your needs and your budget.
It's been a game changer, really. I used to worry a lot about getting the right coverage, especially with my business and home, but now I feel much more confident. They helped me understand my options and made sure I had the right policy for both my business and personal needs.
We specialize in helping hardworking folks, contractors, tradesmen, laborers, the people who keep Texas running. Whether you're a framer in Floresville, a roofer in Seguin, or a plumber in San Antonio, we'll walk you through the process in plain English or Espanol.
We'll pour you a cup of coffee, talk you through your policy, and make sure you leave with more protection and more peace of mind than you came in with.
This is Northwest Insurance. We've got you covered.
Northwest Insurance.
Okay, we are back on Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen. Guys, I'm going to read one more instance of gun violence here on September 15th in Baltimore, Maryland. 5 were killed and 9 were injured when a shooter attacked during a youth outreach event. I mean, it's ridiculous what goes on. Okay, before we took a break, we were talking about how our politicians refuse to protect us. I mean, why, guys, explain to me why can't we just pass legislation that would protect at least some kind of ban on, or make it more difficult for people to get these guns? Any idea?
Y'all said it last segment. It's money.
Right.
That's my number one answer.
Yeah.
It's money.
It is money, and you also said this. Every poll would tell you that about 65% minimum, 65% of America wants sensible gun laws. Gun owners. The guy I used to work with at Channel 8 for years at WFAA, the weather guy, Pete Delkus, very avid hunter. I don't even know how many guns he's got. He goes to the gun club. He loves to shoot, but an incredibly responsible gun owner. All his guns are kept in a vault or a safe at home. He has the right guns for the right hunting project that he pursues for God knows whatever reason. Right. But fine. I don't have a problem at all with a responsible gun owner having a gun. But when you start talking about the machine guns, and even Pete would say, there's just no reason for anybody in America to have a machine gun or a rapid fire gun. The guy in Vegas, remember, that killed 59 people firing off, round after round after round after round. There's no excuse for that, and it just the same argument, and we keep going round and round and round for decades. I pretty much, people say, well, you're a liberal guy. And I say, yeah, but I don't like any of the politicians. I don't,
Yeah.
I just don't like, I can't even think of one now that I support. They say a lot of the right things. There's a couple that I would vote for that I support, but most of them are just looking to protect their job and to protect their money. And yet the public is demanding some sensible gun laws. I am not, I'll say this, but it'll go right over the heads of most people. I am not calling for the banning of all guns. I probably would if you made me king.
Right.
I probably would, because I'm not real crazy about hunting, period. But I absolutely believe, as does most of America, sensible gun laws are within reach. Sensible gun laws would not interfere with going to the gun club and target shooting, going deer hunting, bird hunting in the falls and whatever these seasons are. And yet, I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime.
I don't think it is either.
We're just going to do it. You said, we need more people to die in a shooting before we get too excited, or a very famous person, obviously.
It just goes round and round. A couple of years ago, on a Saturday, I was standing in my kitchen, and I look on Facebook, and a girlfriend of mine was at Stonebriar Mall, and Allen Premium Outlets, Allen, and there was an active shooter there, and she was hiding in a back room of a major store there, and kids were killed. In one family, two daughters were killed who were very young, and they were there doing like back to school shopping. What's
ridiculous?
Get this one. Chris was in a grocery store in Waxahachie a year or two ago. Comes home and tells me about it, and I'm livid. The guy walks in with a long rifle on his back, going grocery shopping, walking through the store with a long rifle on his back. And I said, you should have ran out of that store immediately. You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know.
You don't know.
But, you got the right to carry.
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, well, the only reason the guy's got a long rifle on his back is because everything else in his life is too short.
That's probably true. I mean, he's playing Weekend Warrior every day. I mean, he's got his, he's at home, he's at home in the basement doing Legos and watching stuff he shouldn't be watching on the computer. Anyway, getting back to why politicians are protecting us, the proof is in the pudding. Back in 1994, there was a ban on assault weapons. And from 1994 to 2004, there was a 70% drop in shooting fatalities. And that's only banning assault weapons. So I can't understand why children dying during a mass cannot move the needle. And we've got a short time left, but I've got to come up with some ideas here. Why can't we move that needle when children are dying again in mass? And
you see the success of that, though. Right. When you had that assault rifle ban,
that's assault ban,
and they allowed it. Yeah. They allowed it to lapse,
right?
Because of the voting blocks driven by the NRA, which incidentally bans guns when it is in their office, of course.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you move those people. I mean, when you see them come to the White House, and Trump was sitting there with handwritten notes, show empathy, act concerned,
right.
And you have to be coached up on how to talk to parents of dead children. You got to have somebody write on a cue card for you to act concerned, show empathy. And when you get back to the money of it, I mean, it doesn't ever stop with this system that we have. As long as we have the politicians being elected by who can raise the most money.
Right.
And the people like the NRA are the ones who generate the most money, and their voting base responds. The other point you mentioned about that 70% drop is that, about 50% of the country doesn't even bother to vote. And I was one of those people, by the way, for a very long time, which I've openly admitted, because I didn't ever see things changing for any particular reason. I didn't participate in voting for a long time. And I just don't know. This is the frustration of doing this kind of a podcast, because it makes me so incredibly angry that I give you example after example after example, and these politicians who should care, who I guarantee you know better, as you point out in that 70% drop. It's right there. It's in black and white.
Right. I mean,
I got to give you one quick story.
Please tell me.
As if I ever do a quick story. But I'm in Fort Worth with a buddy of mine, and at a little dinner party, and we started talking about guns. And he has a gun in his house for protection, and he looks at me and he goes, "You don't have a gun in your house?" I said, "No." And I live in the country. I've always lived in the country, and as he's really kind of laughing at me and beating me up for being how stupid I am, the bodyguard for the Bass Brothers was there. The Bass Brothers,
Fort Worth, family,
Fort Worth, multi-millionaires.
Right.
And he's their personal bodyguard. And he said, well, Dale's right. He said, if somebody breaks into Dale's house, and it's the middle of the night, and this happened to a guy, Sean Taylor. I hope I have that name right. But I know he was a safety for the Washington football team. And somebody broke into his house in the middle of the night. Now, they were a bunch of kids. They wanted his TV. They thought he was out of town for the game. They wanted his jewelry. They wanted any money they could find. So Sean Taylor comes out of his bedroom in the middle of the night, scared, as I would be, not real comfortable firing a gun because I don't handle one. What are the odds that I've just escalated that confrontation? So these guys who have broken into my house are probably a little more comfortable with a gun. And this bodyguard showed me. He said, Dale walks out, 6'4", 320 pounds, big old chest body, and he walks right into the front room like, hey, put that TV down. Who gets shot in that scenario? My hand's probably shaking. If I shoot, I probably miss. They're comfortable with a gun. He said, Dale dies.
Yeah.
But if he has a privacy security room, which I do, you go into that security room, you lock the door behind you, they take your TV, and then you call Mark and you file an insurance claim and get your money back.
Right.
With a gun, I get shot. People that say they're going to protect themselves and the gun situation escalates on a road rage. I've had road rage directed at me and me directing it at them. But we eventually flip them off and down the road we go.
Yeah.
And I've said it, I think I've made the joke to you a couple of times. There have been several times when I'm driving up I-35, if I had a pistol, somebody dies. Because of some of the things I see.
I think there'd be some producers.
But I don't want to be in a situation where it escalates.
No.
So I don't do it. And I think it's the right decision.
I know Lila and I have security rooms too. We call them the bathroom at our house. So
Yes. Potato.
Lila, do you what's your stance on guns? You don't know. You want nothing to do with guns.
I want
correct?
nothing to do with guns.
Yeah.
I want zero to do with guns. Prior to something within my family, I wanted nothing to do with guns, and I continue not want anything to do with guns. I won't even go to like a skeet shoot tournament or anything like that. So, but I am in agreement with you, Dale, on. We don't want to take away, or I'm going to say we. I'm in agreement with you, of you saying, I don't want to take away your guns. If you're a responsible gun owner, like your friend Pete, he goes out, he hunts. I don't like hunting either, but maybe people don't like Harry Potter, okay? So people have their own isms and their own things that they enjoy. You said Pete is a responsible gun owner. He goes and hunts. He enjoys it, but he's extremely responsible. And so I'm all for the responsible gun ownership, but no one needs to have an AK-47 or a machine gun or what happened to Charlie Kirk. I don't agree with his philosophies, but it's horrific what happened to that gentleman. He left behind a wife. He left behind children. He left behind family. He left behind friends. It's horrific what happened to that gentleman. That's terrible. He was out there. He was doing what he does, and he got killed for it.
Well, that's what Mark pointed out. The gun violence of and by itself is devastating.
Yes.
But the trickle-down effect of all the family members, you see these family members from Sandy Hook, the parents,
yes,
and they're still not over it. I don't know if you could ever get over that.
You won't.
And yet nothing's been done. Nothing has been done.
Here's a point I want to make, Mark. When you were talking about that a couple of segments ago, I hate it when in stories. Let's say we read a story and it says, oh, only one person died. No, it's not only.
Exactly.
No, only doesn't belong anywhere in that story, because that one person, their whole family, their friends, their work, everything in their world just got affected. It's not only. I mean, that is a tremendous loss, whether it's one or more than that.
They might still be breathing, but they're dead.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
They died.
Yes,
They're just still breathing.
Exactly.
And it's also the fact that you can't put, let's say that we talk about someone who died by gunfire who lives in Virginia, okay, and none of us know them. Okay, so somebody died in Virginia from gunfire. Once you can put a name or something personal, how it affects you, then it becomes so much bigger. And I think, again, I'm using that word desensitized, because it's a person in Virginia, right? And it was one person that, but we have to make it more personal, even if it doesn't personally affect us. And people have got to wake up to that.
Well, I agree with that, but unfortunately, that happens. I've seen specials after Sandy Hook, or where they focus on the death of children, and that just makes for good TV for an hour, and then America's Funniest Videos comes on after that. So, it is crazy. I think there's so much we can continue to discuss. Unfortunately, we only have an hour to go over this. But I think if anything needs to change, I think we all can agree with this. It has to be the narrative about the gun violence. The gun violence, it needs to be, like Lila mentioned, it needs to be personalized, and it needs to somehow trickle down to where people actually feel it now. Because, we could wake up tomorrow and then it'd just be another headline.
Dale,
you wanted to get into what you were talking about next month and some other stuff.
And before I do that, though, let me just finish this one. Maybe on a little bit of a lighter note, just in case somebody thinks I'm a hypocrite about this. The lovely Mrs. Hanson has a gun. I have no idea where it is. It's a shotgun that was given to her by a friend of mine, because we had coyotes attacking our animals. So she set up a trap, and she was actually going to hopefully trap the coyote, and then, if she needed to, shoot him. But it was only a skunk that got caught in the trap. She's with her gun. She's like Barney Fife, for those old enough to remember. She only carries one bullet at a time. So she goes up to the pasture area, realizes that the trap is down. She's caught what she hopes was the coyote that had killed her chickens and attacked her dog. Turns out it's a skunk. So she shoots the skunk, misses with a shotgun, wounds the skunk. Now, I got really slammed for telling this story on the air one night, but I'm sorry, there's a certain amount of humor to it to me.
Please.
She had to drive all the way back to the barn to get her other bullet, because she only had the one shell. Drives back, shoots the skunk again, blows up the whole crate that had been trapped in. And PETA just came after me, and probably will again if they hear this now. I said, well, it's a skunk, right? It's a skunk. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But I have a wife who has a shotgun. I have no idea where it is. I don't want to know where it is. And she uses it to protect her animals. So guns, if I can make this clear, have a purpose if they are responsible. And I would argue carrying one bullet at a time is a good start. Next month, we were going to do it this month, but I had to move it back because life got in the way. But I still want to talk about how I have a plan to make America great again.
I like that phrase.
Public service in America, we absolutely need to bring it back. We used to have it. We got rid of it, but we need to bring it back. I doubt that very many people will agree with me about this, but public service for America can make America great again. And that's what we'll talk about on next month's podcast.
Looking forward to it, guys. It's always a pleasure to be with you, and I look forward to doing this again next month. You've been watching and listening to Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hanson, and we will see you next time.